If you are a neurodivergent entrepreneur or professional, whether that's ADHD, ASD, OCD, or you don't resonate with any of these labels, but you know that your brain works differently than most people, and you struggle holding people's attention or lack confidence in your ability to communicate, you're going to want to watch until the end of this video because I'm going to break down the very first step you are going to need to take in order to resolve this. Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Super Brain series, brought to you by the 25-Hour Day. My name is Colin Response. I'm an entrepreneur, internationally award-winning performing artist, and global ambassador for one of the largest luxury brands in the world. But most importantly, I did all of this with what most people call ADHD and obsessive compulsive disorder. I disagreed. And so I built a business that's helped now over 150 neurodiverse entrepreneurs and professionals rewire their brains so they could cut their working hours in half and add $10,000 to $20,000 a month to their income so that they could have the freedom to enjoy their everyday quality of life in the process. And today I am blessed to have our guest. Maurice is a neurodivergent professional. He works at one of the fastest growing tax strategy companies in the US. And today I'm going to show him why he is stuck so that he can be empowered to decide whether he wants to permanently remove the barriers from his life or not. And I'm going to do it while walking backwards. So let's bring on Maurice.
Hey, Colin, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Lately, people have been asking me how I'm doing, and I'm liking that. So I got your submission pulled up here. Just going to start with having you read it aloud.
I struggled with holding people's interest with my storytelling, which caused me to lose people's respect. I could see them lose interest and respect in their eyes as I was speaking to them, and especially in larger groups, and that lowered my confidence in my ability to communicate.
Appreciate the honesty here. There's a lot of people watching this who have had similar experiences, not having the type of confidence they want to have in how they communicate. So first thing we need to start with is we got to break down what we're really looking at here. And there are certain things in here that we actually need to validate for their accuracy. Because if we don't do that, we will have not a very easy time diagnosing what steps actually need to be taken next. So we're just going to start with, I struggled with holding people's interest with my storytelling. Let's just simply start with, what is the opposite of struggling with holding people's interests with your storytelling?
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is, like I've seen what the opposite is, and I could recognize it when it's happening with other people, and it's basically someone's talking, they feel very comfortable, confident, relaxed in themselves. And when they're around a group of people, they're telling a story, or they're talking about something that happened, and everybody's engaged. And you could see that their words hold weight. It lands right with the other people. So I'd say that when you speak, other people are listening, and you can tell that what you're saying makes sense, right? You're communicating it clearly, and ideally in a way that makes it interesting for them, makes it not necessarily fun, but it just lands.
This is really good because it sounds like you do have a clear idea of what the polarity of that looks like. So I'm putting these subcategories inside of the thing that we're mentioning here so we can really see. Coming out the communication clearly. Everyone's engaged. Now it lands right. What does it mean for something to land right?
Well, it's sort of like comedians, right? Comedians, they're storytellers, and they need to have a punchline that they need to know when their punchline is and when to say it, when to time it. So if they're telling a story, there's like a buildup, and then they drop their punchline, and the people either laugh or laugh or cry or whatever the emotion they're going for. But it's just getting that timing down right, because what would happen with me is that I would be telling a story and I'd just be going on and on and on. People are listening for like, basically, what's the point of what you're telling us? And then it just never came. So they're like, okay, you told us a whole bunch of words, but there was never any punchline. There was never any point to it. So they just got confused. I could see it in their eyes, and they would lose interest, and just made me not want to try that again because it seemed like I wasn't good at that.
So thanks for that clarity. So there's a clear point of arrival, if you will, for the intention of the story. Um,
Right.
and it's building up to that. And the result of that punchline has people react emotionally in some way. It could be laughing,
Right.
crying, whatever.
Yeah. Like an example of the bad way to do it or the way that I used to do it. Be like, let's say somebody asked me like how my day was. Oh, well, I went to school, then I had to do some homework, then I had lunch, and then I went home, and now I'm here. Like, okay, I told you what I did, but it's just not a lot of detail, not a lot of explaining, how I felt doing different things, helping the other people understand or come along for the ride to where it's actually engaging.
Okay. So perfect. We got this emphasis of the word engage, intention. Okay.
Yep.
So we have a clear intention. Cool. So now we're clear on what it means for it to land right. So now we've looked at that aspect. Now we got these two that I want to address before we start to dive a little bit deeper into these. So right here, losing respect when this happens. So we want to ask the question, which is, okay, well, what do you want to happen when you are storytelling or speaking? Like, what is the polarity of losing respect in your communication with people?
I've I've felt it. I think we've all felt it. There are certain people who, because they're authentic, because they're comfortable in themselves, maybe because of their personality or how they are, they make you feel good. You want to be around them more. You like talking to them. You like engaging with them. And the opposite is someone who's just there. You need to kind of feed them information to pull things out of them. And they're just kind of hanging around. So when you're around them, you just kind of feel like they want something or they're taking something. So you're not your first instinct isn't like, oh, I want to talk to this person more because they almost kind of seem shut down. So I don't want to be, if we're in a social situation, I don't want to be a person that kind of you feel like, oh, I don't want to be around this guy because he doesn't engage me, he doesn't ask me questions, he doesn't talk to me or doesn't make comments. He's just kind of there. So I want to be someone who is comfortable in myself and I can I can have fun. Like that's basically like I want to have a good time. I want to enjoy myself, enjoy my days, enjoy my life, and um, be able to connect, be able to have fun with other people, and not make it feel like I have to. It has to be work, or has to be business, or has to be something specific. Just have a good time connecting. And when I'm telling people something, it's something that is engaging, it's clear, and yeah, that they understand what I'm trying to get across.
Okay. So there's some crossover here and what we have above. The key thing we want to look at right now is what we look at the polarity of losing somebody's respect. Like you can see there's people who are authentic, you want to be around them and these ways that you want to feel, which is good. I want to dial in further to the respect aspect specifically so we can find out what the polarity of this in the feeling space for you is. And get clarity.
Mhm.
Is the opposite of feeling like people have lost respect for you, is that the fact that people want to be around you, or is it that they feel like they're benefiting from you?
Okay, so when I think about it, I think about being at a dinner table with a group of people, right? It could be your family, could be your friends. And most people, they're waiting for someone to say something to fill the silence, right? Because if it's just silence, then people feel awkward. They're just kind of trying to eat some more food and they feel nervous. Um, and there are certain people that will just start talking and engaging. So when I've told a story in the past, everybody in around the table, all eyes on me, and I could tell that they were engaged, they were interested. And as I went along telling the story, there wasn't a clear intention, there wasn't a clear thing. So I could see in their eyes that they they lost interest, they lost respect, and then they essentially over time said, this is a person who his words don't really hold weight, and it's not someone that we should listen to. And that comes across in like every area of life. With your family, you'll probably just say, I'm not the storyteller. In relationships, why would someone want to be with you if it feels like work to be with you and it's not a fun, engaging time, having great conversations? And at work, if you can't clearly get your point across, Why would someone want to um, why would someone want to take action on the ideas you bring forward if you yourself don't have the confidence behind them or can't clearly articulate why those ideas are important? So I feel like it's affected every area of life. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm hearing here is you have great clarity on the consequences and the impacts of this. Heard you say specifically, people are thinking, okay, this is not somebody worth listening to. Like I've started to listen, but then didn't benefit from it. And where we want to go is the umbrella of the affirmative language, right? So now we need to look at specifically what would be the polarity of listening to somebody for a long time and feeling like you didn't get a benefit. What would be the opposite of that?
Um, being engaged, being um, being engaged, being challenged, being walking away from that interaction, feeling, I want to say good, but I mean it could be many emotions. Just feeling an emotion, feeling um, good, bad, or ugly, but that person's ability to communicate leaves an impact, leaves an impression, and I think yeah, that's kind of where my mind's going right now.
Okay, great. So we're starting to move in the direction of what will be of great utility to you, right? So when we look at this, often people are not approaching it as simply as they could be, right? When we look at, what caused people like the opposite of somebody losing respect, well, I mean, it would be them gaining respect. But if we don't have a clear
Right.
understanding of what respect means to us, then that's not as clear. So we broke that down. So that's great because you clarified more specifically people listening for a long time without benefit. So when I look at this in two aspects, we took care of the second part, which is without benefit. The opposite of that is it leaves an impact. It leaves an impression, right? An
Right.
emotional impact, an emotional impression versus no benefit. So the other side would be, well, what's the opposite of listening for a long time?
Tuning out, not listening, not engaging,
Well, in the
ignoring.
context, more in the context of this, right? So listening for a long time without benefit, listening for a long time with benefit, right? So in this scenario, in the opposite context, is there anything that comes to your mind?
Um, it's coming to my mind. The same word keeps coming up. Like I want to say engaged again, but listening for a long time without benefit is listening and benefiting from the conversation.
Cool. So we're in one of the areas right now that is responsible for the challenge you're facing. We're interfacing with it right now. I like to call this the sweet spot. It's the spot in which we identify that we don't have language for the result we're looking to produce. And therefore, from a neurological perspective, our brain cannot connect to the emotions or the experiences that would enable us to activate the parts of our brain that are associated with taking on those behaviors in that context. Now, it seems a little wordy what I just said, but ultimately what that means is our brain is focused on what it deems as important. And it determines what's important based on what we give attention to and the amount of emotion that is associated with that attention. Specifically, the subject matter is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether it's good or it's bad, because that is a human and moral decision. Our brain is not operating from a moral perspective. It is operating in complete and absolute objectivity. There's no good or there's no bad to your brain, to the universe. It is, right? So when we find ourselves challenged with something specifically, and when discussing it, we have clarity on what aspects of it we do not like or we want to move away from. But we don't have absolute and complete clarity around what it is that we are looking to achieve. That will mean we will find ourselves possibly able to avoid the thing we don't really want, but we're still going to find ourselves under that umbrella, and you're going to find yourself running into similar things that aren't exactly that, but aren't what you're wanting to experience. And it's because your brain hasn't yet connected what you're trying to experience with previous experiences, right? Your brain's an association machine. So it needs to be like, oh, fun. Here's an environment. I've experienced fun. I'm supposed to have fun in this environment. If your brain doesn't think fun, it's never going to process the options of what could be fun in this environment. It's going to process what could be whatever emotion your brain is dialed to at the time in this environment, because our brain is not showing us everything. It's only showing us what it deems as important at the time, and it's removing everything else. It's deleting everything else. So you can be in the exact same environment. And, we use this analogy all the time. Like you get a new phone or you get new shoes or you get a new car, anything new, frankly. And then suddenly you start to see so many other people with that thing. And it's not that any more people have that thing.
Yeah.
It's just that you had a heightened emotion associated with the subject matter. And maybe you were excited to get that thing. That's all it takes. Or maybe you were angry about that thing. That's all it takes. And then your senses, eyes, ears, taste, touch, are tuned to see and look for more of that because it's been deemed as important. So how does that relate here? Well, it relates here because when we look at something like our definition of losing people's respect is you're experiencing them lose interest after listening for a long time without a benefit to them. And we look for the polarity and we're able to pull out your communication with them is leaving an impact or impression. The part that we are missing that we need to get to is the first part of this, which is listening for a long time. The opposite of listening for a long time is not the being disengaged. In this context, it is simply listening for a short time. It is the ability to speak for a short time and leave an impact and impression.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I point this out in a lot of these episodes so people realize that it's okay that you don't have that language yet because we're always using the best language we have learned so far. And that is why we're here, so that you can actually identify, is it any surprise to me that usually when I'm speaking for a long time and people are disengaged, if I haven't ever clarified that my objective is to find a way to have an emotional impact in the shortest amount of words possible. If I've never thought about that being my objective or intent, what's the probability that that's going to be the result? Very low. But moreover, what's the possibility that you're going to come up with that idea or solution in real time when you're in a conversation, when you already have your emotions going and you're not feeling very confident? It's not likely that you're going to be like, let me cultivate the perfect way to have the most impact in the shortest amount of words. Like, it's not going to happen there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we uncover these things so that we can identify what the result is that's needed, so that we can actually ask ourselves the questions that are necessary in order to act upon those things and practice those things, so that when we move into environments that are unfamiliar, uncomfortable, that even though we know we're not perfect at doing the thing, we are very clear on the thing that we ought to do. And we may not do it very well the first time, or the second time, or the third time, but maybe the fourth time or the fifth time, you're like, okay, it didn't suck that time. And you're able to see the progress. But the progress only comes from having a clear result that you'll be able to measure against, which has to come from a clear definition of what outcome you want to produce rather than what you want to stay away from. Picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, actually, as you were saying that, I feel like I got a revelation, which is I think that because of those bad experiences, I doubted myself. I doubted my ability to communicate clearly and with conviction, and for people that people would want to listen to what I had to say. And whether like consciously or unconsciously, I brought that doubt into my interactions, just like how I can sense it in people when I'm in a social situation of this guy, hey, he's in a great mood. He wants to connect with people. It feels good. I want to talk with him. This guy over here, he doesn't feel comfortable in himself. Like he feels a little insecure, a little nervous. I don't want to engage so much, right? Because like kind of like wounded puppy sort of energy coming off of that person. And I would bring that into the different situations I go into, whether that's, a relationship or whether that's speaking up in class or work or whatever. That I think that seed of doubt just caused people to react the way I didn't want them to react. But that's because I had this belief or I had these experiences and didn't drill down into, what's the opposite of that. So huge.
Amazing. Maurice, this is the entire purpose of this series. Not to give people the illusion that I'm going to come here in my shawl and wave a magic wand and resolve all the issues of somebody's life in a 45-minute episode. No, it is to bring an awareness so the person can expand their perspective and identify what the actual real problem has been. Because the only way you will have a problem that persists for a prolonged period of time is either you're not doing anything to fix it, or what you think is what is going to fix it is not what is going to fix it. And in most cases, it's not the first one. Most people are just sitting around just doing nothing. They're putting all their time, energy, and money into resolving the symptoms of the problem rather than the actual problem. When we go through this and we look at it on the other side, it's going to be clear that, okay, there's still steps that have to be taken. There's still, oh, shoot, well, I actually need to learn how to have an emotional impact in as little words as possible. What steps could I take to develop that ability? What objectives do I need to think about in terms of having an emotional impact? Well, how would I have an emotional impact? Well, I would need to first know what emotionally impacts people. Or if I want people to feel joy or excitement or feel captivated, all of these things are questions that one can ask only when they are clear on the result. And knowing the result is what will empower you to be able to do that.
12 o'clock midnight.
I'm comfortable, confident, and relaxed in myself. My storytelling is captivating. When I speak, everyone's engaged because the words that I say hold weight and what I say has clear intention. The intention of my story lands, causing listeners to engage emotionally, whether that's laughing or crying. And that's because there's a buildup. The story's going somewhere. So I can tell that it makes sense for them and it's interesting for them. People respect me and my ability to communicate clearly and are eager to listen to me because I'm able to have an emotional impact on them while being concise. I'm confident in the value of what I have to communicate and conviction in what I'm saying. And ultimately, people share that they benefit greatly from what I have to say and enjoy being around me.
Well, it's already started right here. You already started being more concise. Okay.
Let's go. I mean, it was exactly what you were saying before, where I knew that I had the problem, but I didn't quite know how to articulate what the problem was or how to solve it. So I would try to look at different things in hopes that they would help me. Like, for example, if I went to work out, you know, I said, maybe I'll be more confident, and maybe if I'm more confident, I can communicate better, and that'll help me. But going to the gym wasn't directly fixing this issue of holding people's interest in what I said. So then I'm like, well, it's not that. And I would jump from thing to thing to thing because I didn't have the clarity around what I was trying to aim at. So I feel like going through this exercise is awesome because it flips it around and it shows me the bullseye. It shows me what I'm actually trying to go for, which will open up the path for me to work on that.
That's powerful. It's one thing to say, I don't want to throw a dart at that. It's very different to say, I want to throw a dart at that. You can still not throw a dart at that, and it can go in infinite places that aren't the bullseye.
Absolutely. And trust me, I've wasted plenty of time, money, and effort not hitting the bullseye on different things. So this is it's a way shorter road to go from point A to point B.
I want it to be abundantly clear to everyone here that the intention is not, whoa, like we did this, and now Maurice is a perfect communicator, and everybody is immediately absolutely engaged in everything he says, and all of his stories are the best stories you've ever heard in your entire life because he spoke to me. That's not the point of the series. The point of the series is to bring awareness to what the actual thing standing in your way is so that you can be empowered to make the decision as to whether or not you want to resolve it instead of spending tons of money, instead of spending tons of time, instead of spending tons of energy in areas that are not ever going to produce the result because they're not the actual reason you're facing the problem. Because that's what happens to most neurodiverse entrepreneurs and most neurodiverse professionals. They wrap around in these cycles wondering why they can't resolve it. They will spend so many resources to get more information, but it just makes it harder. It's no surprise as to why it's more difficult because you have more things to do, you have less time to do them, and you still haven't been able to produce the result. And it's just through the simple misdiagnosis of what the true problem is. Something as simple as this can open up the spectrum of you being able to recontextualize your experiences and realize, well, maybe that's why I haven't been able to achieve this.
Yeah, I mean, it actually brought up a lot of things. One of them was, like, growing up, I didn't want to be like a quote unquote nice guy, right? You know, you can be kind without losing that respect that people have for you. And if someone's a quote unquote nice guy, especially if it's in dating, it's not really what I was going for. But I was challenged in my ability to set boundaries or speak up for myself. And I feel like I had a lot of things to say. I had a lot of thoughts that I wanted to share with people. But because I had such a hard time believing that I could communicate well, I just wouldn't share them. I'd be quiet. I would self-censor. And I regret that because I spent a lot of time, kind of just going along to get along type of thing, when in reality, I just agreed with things that I didn't actually agree with. And so what I've been trying to go for is the opposite of, like, I wanted to speak up because I had things to say. I wanted to share my thoughts and my insights with people, my classmates at work, in relationships. But I felt trapped. I felt like I just was trapped behind this wall of not being able to communicate clearly. And so I feel like it's robbed me of a lot of time and opportunities that I could have otherwise used to build a better life for myself. So seeing this, I'm realizing that I was aiming at all of the things that it's not. Like, okay, I don't want to be a nice guy that just agrees with everything. I don't want to be someone that lets himself be walked over or doesn't speak up, or his words don't hold weight. Let me go try X, Y, and Z. But all those things weren't addressing the root of the issue. And I think with this, it's kind of crazy how fast it was, and the clarity that it's bringing. Now I have that bullseye to aim at, so I can improve and not waste time.
Thanks for that share, Maurice. If you are somebody who has spent thousands on generic business coaching or productivity or doing whatever it is you've done to try to solve the problem, but you still have the problem, this is your sign to let you know that's not actually what the problem is. You're not cursed by this neurodiversity. The reality is you have just been trying to solve the wrong problem. All of your energy has been going to resolving the symptoms of the problem rather than the root neurological factors that are impacting your decision making, your executory skills. If you're struggling with analysis paralysis, procrastination, perfectionism, you actually have to address the core issue. That's why we have the 25-hour day, to help people who are like, I know my destination, but I'm not clear on exactly what steps need to be taken in order to achieve those objectives and reach that destination in the most effective way possible. Then you can make the choice. Do I want to Google around on the internet to try to figure out how to get to the answers? Or do I want to get support and make the most of the limited time that I have here on earth so that I can add $10,000, $20,000 a month to my income, so that I can cut my working hours in half, so I can cut the energy I'm spending in half and repurpose that energy, time, and money to the things I care about, like my relationships, my family, the things I'm passionate about, because these things are possible, but they're only possible when you release this idea that you have these challenges because of your neurodiversity. The only challenge you're facing is that you have not yet learned how to leverage the way that the neurodiverse brain naturally works. Click the link that is in the description below this video, and you'll be able to see how massive the impacts are that you can be experiencing in your life in a extraordinarily short window of time, just by being able to leverage how your brain naturally works. Or you can keep collecting more information and keep having less time to do it in, until you get to the point where you realize, I don't have any more time to waste. I want to make the most of the life that I have right now. Until then, I'll see you on the next episode of the Neurodivergent Super Brain. Thank you, Maurice. Wishing you all peace, love, and prosperity.
45 minutes, man. That's crazy.
Of success, lack, love.